I'm on. Oh
We
my
got
God.
it.
Wow.
We did. Hey, everybody. So we are going to start in just a few minutes. So just hold tight. I'm going to put some things up since you still hold tight. Okay.
All right. So give me 1 second while you do that. Okay, honey?
Beautiful. Perfect. See you guys in like
Okay.
2 minutes.
Okay.
And while we're waiting, make sure you get your questions ready and post them on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live. We can see all the comments all at once. And if you're lucky, if it's a great question, we might just post it live on the video where we can see your name and the question, which is really cool. All right, so sit tight. We're going to start shortly. All right, here we are. Hey, we did
Hey,
it.
we sure did. I was nervous about that.
Oh my goodness. So how are you doing tonight? How you feeling?
A little stressed from being in the house, but doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need some sleep. I haven't slept much.
Yeah. Why don't you tell the people why you didn't sleep much? Because you had me stressed for like 5 minutes.
So my sister went to the market yesterday. She said, "Do you need anything from the market? Toilet paper or dish detergent?" And I said, "I really want birthday cake and ice cream." And she's like, "You want birthday cake and ice cream?" I said, "Yes, I really want I want that. It's comfort food." So she's all right. So she brought me birthday cake and ice cream. And at night at 12 o'clock, the Hungry
There you
Horrors came
are.
in and start,
Yes,
started eating cake and ice cream, and I was up all night.
you are too much. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the Magical Solution, to Boricua Brujex. And we are here. My name is Leilani, the Gray Goddess. I'm from the Magical Solution. And this is my wonderful dearest friend, Sancista Brujo Luis. And we are here today talking about a pretty cool subject, actually. It's kind of a two-part conversation, but don't worry, we're not actually doing it in two parts.
Right.
But we are going to kind of break it up a little bit. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is basically the reason why we're here, right? It's this idea of connection in crisis, connecting with your
Mm-hmm.
head, right? So this connection in crisis is a subject that Sancista and myself have been observing a lot in the social media world. And we kind of
Mm-hmm.
wanted to talk a little bit about it. And then, of course, the second part would be to kind of sprinkle in the things that we love the most, which is working with
Right.
the spirit, working with the dead, how to do that, simple, basic
Mm-hmm.
information, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you get your questions ready for us. If you're lucky, you can have your question posted on the video, which will be really great. Now, for those of you who know who Sancista Brujo Luis is, obviously this man does not need an introduction at all. But for those of you who are meeting him for the first time tonight, I'm going to read a little bit about my dear friend.
Okay. God, I'm gonna blush you.
So Sancista Brujo Luis was raised in Puerto Rican Espiritismo and was gifted with the sight of seeing between the veils since a young age, when a near-death experience at the age of 6 opened his eyes to the spirit realm. A Puerto Rican espiritista born and raised into a family of spiritual mediums who practice espiritismo criollo in Puerto Rico, he was later baptized and crowned into the Puerto Rican branch of voodoo known as Sanse. He is a caballo de misterio and receives ceremonies in Dominican Republic tradition of 21 divisions. In Venezuela, under the guidance of Maria Leonzera, he took the trek up the Sorte Mountain, where he passed spirits and received ceremonies into the Maria Leonza cult. He is also a Bejique shaman in Puerto Rican Taino shamanic Seminismo tradition. Today, Sancista Luis mixes his blend of Sanse with Bojito shamanic tradition, Afro Puerto Rican spiritualism, Gitano brujeria, and cartomancia. He is also the author of Luz y Progreso, a guide to Puerto Rican Espiritismo, and he is a full-time spiritual advisor, tarot reader, and spiritist medium. Woo, child.
Hello, everybody.
Wow. You've been around. You've been doing this for quite some time.
Half a century, here I am.
Oh my gosh. I have to say it's been an honor. So the last time we were in this position, I don't even know how many years ago it was. You were my very first live.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago.
You gave me a chance. I remember coming up to you all timid and nervous and asking if you would do it with me, and you gave me a chance. And now I love interviewing people. I love talking to people, and I'm just so glad that we got a chance to do it again. So tonight's topic, you were really passionate about it. You really wanted to talk about this subject. You had been observing some things, you had been noticing some things. So why don't you start off? Why don't you tell us some of the things that you've been observing during this time?
Well, during the 2 weeks that we've been going through what we've been going through with this sad coronavirus thing, I've been noticing online a lot of people taking advantage of people during their times of, when we're weak and when we're scared. People can take advantage of us. And so I noticed all these, just out of the blue, all these groups and pages popping up, how to honor your spirit guides, with prices, which I see no problem with that, but it got me to think. It's like, wow, here we are, 2020, right? And we are finally learning how to properly wash our hands, right? And here we are in 2020. We've been around 200,000 years, right, as a human species, give or take, number. And we still don't know the basic fundamentals of honoring our ancestors or our spirit guides. And that, to me, just baffles me sometimes, Yeah. So that's why I came up to you and said, I thought that would be interesting to do this podcast or this show.
Yeah, definitely. And I see what you're saying, because I feel like people definitely need to have at least a basic understanding of how to work with your spirits and with your guides, so that you're not taken advantage of. And I think that's where this conversation tonight is going to kind of jump in between, questions about working with your spirits and your dead and your ancestors, and conversations about how to avoid, being taken advantage of, and how to spot it, where the red flags are, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to be kind of jumping back and forth. So that's why I hope that everyone has a bunch of questions ready, because at the end of the day, it really is about safety, and it really is about having a beautiful experience. And both Sancista and myself, we want to be able to bring that to you. So starting with the basics, one of the things that we tend to get a lot of questions about, right, is, what constitutes an ancestor, right? Because you hear there's a lot of debate in the community, and this is something that can help, people who are seeking readings and people who are seeking to connect with their dead, but they don't know how. This can help kind of understand how to get a proper reading from someone, and if they're the real deal or not, depending on what they're telling you. So again, coming from Sancista's experience, from his tradition, the Espiritismo tradition, this may differ from tradition to tradition, but what constitutes as an ancestor? Because the debate that I'm seeing a lot of is, one, not everyone is an ancestor, or everyone is an ancestor. And the second part of that debate is, if everyone is an ancestor, there is a time frame at some point. Like, it's not like you become an ancestor the minute you die. There is a time frame. And then there's a debate around that. So what's your experience with that?
So I'm going to talk to you about my personal experience and how I was taught. You got to understand that I'm I can't speak about cultures like in Africa where they might use the term ancestor for someone who has passed away. I'm going to talk to you in the mindset of Latinos, Puerto Rican people, Mexican, you know. For us, an ancestor, un ancestro, is someone remote after the grandmother. Okay. Then we have difuntos. Difuntos are the spirits. I don't even know how to say the word difuntos in English. Sorry. Difuntos are the spirit of people you've known in this life who have passed away. My grandmother, I knew my grandmother, so she is my difunta. I had a cousin, she passed away. She is a difunta. I was on a group not that long ago, and I was trying to explain this concept, you know, and of course I got a lot of backlash from this group. You gotta understand that I have two sets of twins, two that are alive today and two that passed away. All right. I held those boys in my hands, and those are my sons. Okay, whether they're in material form or they're in spiritual form, they were my sons, and they were not my ancestors. Do you see what I'm saying? They are my difuntos. You know what I'm saying? So in Latin culture, we use the term difuntos, and I wish I knew the English term for it. I don't know if people are commenting, but that's how we view it in the Spanish or Hispanic culture.
Yeah, deceased, right?
Thank you. An ancestor for us is someone remote after your grandmother. But if you knew your great grandmother, if you physically knew your great grandmother, then it would be someone after her. That would be your ancestor.
Got you. And is there a, what's the right way of saying this? Is there a time frame before you can start acknowledging someone who has passed away? So you've clarified what an ancestor is in your tradition, and the distance that it takes for someone to become an ancestor.
Right.
But what about someone who just recently deceased? Because what we're going to see now, right, especially now in this crisis, let's be real, people are going to be dying of this virus. It's happening already. People who might be watching this live right now might lose someone from this virus, right? And they're going to be seeking some kind of connection, some kind of communication.
Right.
And this is a very vulnerable time for a lot of people, and an easy opportunity for them to get taken advantage of from readers, from workers, and things like that.
And not just from workers, but from the world of spirit as well.
Exactly.
From the world of spirit as well.
So what is a good time frame that you recommend for someone who just
for Latinos and for Hispanic, whether you are Puerto Rican, Cuban, Brazilian, all Latin America, from Spain, Portuguese, Italian, I think the French do the same thing. When someone physically passes away, okay, let's say they passed away, God bless everyone, but let's say they pass away today, all right? We take a day of rest, all right? Then we do el velorio, which is for 3 days, okay? After the velorio, we take a day of rest, and then we bury them, then we take a day of rest, and after that day of rest, we do in our cultures what we call a novena. Novena is something that we borrowed from the Catholic tradition, but it has a lot of spiritual and occult undertones, because what we're doing in that novena is we're praying that spirit that has just recently passed may purge and cleanse and be able to elevate quicker. Does that make sense? So I don't know if I'm answering the question there. Now, after that, we don't necessarily work with that spirit, and we don't necessarily honor that spirit. We can give that spirit light, and we can give that spirit water, but we generally don't do anything with that spirit until a year, a physical human year. You got to understand that the world of spirit, there's no time measured as there is measured in the material plane. But in the material plane, we give it a year, 12 months to the date of when that person physically passed away. then we try we try to communicate if we can. Some spirits, I have seen some spirits that, the world of spirit, it's so mysterious. I have seen some spirits that even we were doing a novena. Okay, I was doing a novena with my neighbor. She's an espiritista, but she's also a Catholic. Didn't know these people, and as she was doing the rosario, the rosary, se me para los pelos, as she was doing the rosario, the spirit came on this woman, on Doña Chabela, and the spirit it began to cry, and the spirit said, "I've passed away. I've passed on because my husband was selling my medication, so that he can have money for drugs." And the spirit said, "Forgive him. Forgive him. It is in God's hands." Chabela didn't know these people. Everyone was crying because she did have a terminal illness that she did have to take medication, and her husband was addicted to drugs. So she did actually, the spirit came on and gave that message. So it depends on the spirit and how elevated the spirit was in life or evolved.
That's interesting. I definitely want to get into the subject of mounting down the road of the video, but now that you've kind of sort of laid out a time frame in terms of, at least from your tradition, from your perspective, that it should take about a year before we try to attempt to make contact.
Right.
Now, what about, because you will get those stubborn people, or you will get those ones who really are desperate and want to speak to their person and are convinced that their loved one is visiting them or reaching out to them and making contact with them. Is that a thing in your tradition? Is that real?
Yes, it is. A spirit can communicate. It depends on the person. Every case is very different. But on a general basis, when someone passes away that we love and that we care, we are going through a suffering stage, okay? A state of suffering, okay? And usually lower vibrational spirits can pretend to be that person that passed away and act like that person.
Right.
Okay. Usually we call them endurecidos, burlones. Burlones is a mocking spirit. So that's mocking spirit can pretend to be that loved one, so that you give them that prayer or whatever it is that you give them. So generally, I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, you are. Yeah.
But I've known of people that before they have physically died, the body has physically died, the material body. I've known people, my grandmother being one with my mother, that her spirit left her body. And her spirit went to my mother, and visited my mother before she passed away. And then 2 days later, she passed away, But her spirit went to it left the shell, the physical body, and it visited my mother. So that can happen.
And let's also not forget the science behind all of this too. I agree with you 150%. There are malevolent spirits, low-level spirits that can take advantage. There are opportunities for spirits to come and visit to say goodbye. But then let's not forget, when you're in that mourning stage, there is so many sensory things that occur in the brain, and calling of the person. All of a sudden, certain smells get conjured up, certain memories get conjured up, certain things get conjured up during this mourning stage that feels so real and confused with the visitation. So let's also keep that in mind too, that there's a science also behind this.
Well, if Puerto Rican people, when they suffer, and Latin American people, when they suffer, we suffer hard. Yeah. And we go through el ataque, and you'll see the doñas, Juana, ¿por qué me dejaste? Juana, Juana, why did you leave me? Now, any spirit that's on the other side that might have used that name in their previous life can listen to that. Right. And come.
Such passion. It's like
they say it with such passion. Exactly.
So So now that you guys have understood, now there is a certain time frame to try and reach out. There is a certain vulnerability that may occur, that definitely occurs after someone has passed, and so you
Mm-hmm.
can see sort of the framework and the lay of the land as to why it can be very treacherous waters out here when you're shopping for a reader or for someone who's doing work, or if you're trying to connect with your dead and you don't know very much and you're trying to learn information from new sources. You can see now why it's important, number one, to have a level head, to maybe not approach the connecting with the dead right after a loss. Maybe wait
Mm-hmm.
time so that you are clear to do something like that. This will help you to avoid some of these pitfalls that people tend to run into. Definitely.
The only thing I suggest anyone do for their spirits, for anyone who's passed away, the basic fundamental offerings. Mourn them if you have to mourn them, but give them prayers, okay? And give them light, a candle, and give them water. They need that. They need that light, and they need that water for clarity. You know, so you can give them that. You know, they deserve that. Uh, and I'll go further on that, I'm sure, in the
Yeah, no,
conversation.
definitely.
You know,
That's at least bare minimum. That's at least bare minimum. But
exactly.
actually, let's actually talk about that, because there are people. So let's just pretend for a moment that you are a spiritual seeker that has some basic background in working with the dead, but you're looking
Hmm.
to go further into it because you're by yourself. You don't really have anyone to learn from, and
Hmm.
we're telling you here now: water, some light. That's basic. But what about
Hmm.
actual offerings and actual food and things like that? I know you had gotten a question a while back.
Hmm.
Very interesting question. It was a question
Okay.
of, how do you feed your ancestors? Where do you feed them? Do you feed them on the floor? Do you feed them in the bathroom? Do you feed them on the altar? What kinds of food? And
Hmm.
who specifically can be fed? Are there people that you don't want to feed? And what does that look like? So let's talk about that for a
Ooh,
minute.
so we'd have to break that. That's a lot. So we'd have to
Uh,
pinpoint somewhere, you know, so that I can answer.
so let's start with what kind of offerings aside from water and light can you give to your dead?
So first of all, a lot of people like to offer their spirits food on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. This does not happen in the Hispanic culture. We choose 2 dates to give offerings to our seres. The biggest day, or our dead, los muertos. The biggest day is el Día de los Muertos, okay, or el Día de las Ánimas. That's what we call it in Puerto Rico, el Día de las Ánimas, and that is the day that we offer to our spirits. And traditionally, in Puerto Rican culture, we always give bread, pan dulce. The spirits love dulce, they love sweetness, and chocolate. Chocolate is hot cocoa, you know. Uh, but we do that on the Day of the Dead, and other people have also started using a Beltane. I don't know how you call Beltane. May 1st.
Yeah.
May 1st is another day when the veil is very thin between the world of the spirits and the human. So you can also use that day to give your spirits offerings.
And
We don't place the offerings on the altar. In our tradition, in Mexican culture, they go to the cemetery and they dress the cemetery. In Puerto Rican culture, which is sadly dying out, you will see them place an offering, which is very interesting because the jack-o'-lantern in Halloween follows with this tradition where we put the jack-o'-lantern outside by the door on the ground. We would put the offerings by the door. We give them a white candle. We give them a water, make sure there's water, some sweet bread, some hot cocoa. If a spirit that you knew like some tobacco, sometimes people, it depends on, every person. Some people would put tobacco, candies, and sweetness and stuff like that.
so, it seems so very intuitive when it comes to these offerings. It seems light,
Hmm.
it seems airy, it seems fun and whimsical and sweet, um,
Hmm.
joyful. So, are there ever offerings that are not so pleasant to work with to give to your ancestors?
You don't, we
Like,
generally don't. we don't give our spirits salt. Salt is I'm sorry?
Yeah, no salt. Gotcha.
Yeah, we don't give our spirits salt. There's a reason why the salt, but a lot of people just don't give salt. I mean, it depends on each person. Each person is very, I mean, let's say my neighbor, her husband wasn't love to drink. If she wants to give her husband on the Day of the Dead a cerveza, a beer, she has the right to do so. You know what I'm saying? We shouldn't criticize what other people offer. But generally, like I said, it's just bread and hot cocoa and water and stuff like that. But I don't know if I'm answering the question.
Well, I think I was kind of going because I got it from another question, believe it or not.
Okay.
So someone had asked,
Okay.
and this might lead into some questions further down the road, but someone had asked about any kind of blood offerings to your ancestors.
No, we do not. We do not give any blood offerings to the spirits. Blood attracts lower vibrational energies, lower vibration. The only ones who work blood is necromancers, muerteros. It's a totally different tradition than espiritismo. But we do not give blood to the ancestors or to our spirit guides within espiritismo or spiritism. Blood can attract. You got to understand how blood, it can attract, the best way, I'm going to put this in your mind, it can attract vampiric spirits, okay? It could attract, blood to some spirit is like morphine or cocaine to a drug addict.
Right.
And once you offer that, it's going to always going to come back. And if you don't give that, it's going to torture your life. It's going to make your life miserable. So in our traditions, we do not give blood to los seres.
So again, this is for people who are seeking services, for people who are looking for information through Espiritismo to connect with their dead. This is yet another thing, another red flag that you can look for if someone is guiding you and telling you to put some kind of a blood offering onto an altar. If someone is guiding you and telling you to make food with lots of salt in it, these are some red flags that you can then say, you know what, this might not be what I think it is.
That is a mocking spirit. Now there are traditions that do offerings, but it's a very complex religions, and I'm not going to talk about those religions because I have no authority to do so or license to do so. But there are religions that do work blood, but with spirits that are part of their cuadro in that tradition, but that is not part of Espiritismo.
Exactly.
We don't do it in the
Like you said, cuadro. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's basically like your spiritual court, your spiritual army, all of your guides, all
your quadrant. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of that, just to kind of bring it full circle, I'm getting a lot of great questions, and I definitely want to include a lot of these in here. You know what? This is a good one. Let's go there. Candelo Kimbisa. He says, should someone on their moon cycle be at the mesa? So before we go into a mesa, what is the difference between a mesa blanca and like an ancestral altar or boveda or any of these other altars that you could potentially?
So boveda. Okay, so this is complex. A lot of people box it all in one. Yeah. Boveda comes from the Afro-Cuban Espiritismo tradition known as Espiritismo Cruzado. Okay, Espiritismo Cruzado is spiritism practiced in Cuba mixed with Afro-Yoruba traditions. There's Puerto Rican traditions similar to it. We call it a Santerismo, and then we also have Sanse. So a boveda comes from the Afro-Cuban tradition. What a boveda is, if you go to Puerto Rico, I'm sure they have them here. A boveda is like a crypt, okay? And in Puerto Rico, if you go to the old cemeteries, you'll see these beautiful bovedas and tombs, okay? Crypts. And inside these beautiful tombs, you'll see an altar that usually has the patron saint of the person that they honored in life, in front of where the person is buried. So that's where they get the word boveda. In Puerto Rico, we do not use the word boveda. Well, we do now. People have incorporated the word bóveda. So I shouldn't say we don't, because we have incorporated the word. But in Puerto Rico, we use the term santuario. And traditionally, we use the word santuario, which is a shrine, an ancestral shrine, or mesa. Now, mesa means an altar. Now, mesa, very complex as well, because not generally do we use, if you go to a templo or a centro in Puerto Rico, a mesa is not generally used to honor ancestors. In Puerto Rico, a templo or a centro is a place where you will see mediums of various different levels, okay, of development, stages of development, sit behind the mesa. Then you have in front of them the público. Público is the public. And a centro and a templo in Puerto Rico is a place where we honor spirits, we work spirits, we remove black magic, we do spiritual healing, psychic surgery, okay? So in Puerto Rico, a mesa would be where the mediums sit, okay? And then you will often see santuarios, or santuarios to the ancestors, to los seres, los muertos, los protectores. Protectores is protectors. Seres are beings. And then you will also see, also in a centro templo, you will see altares. Altares is for the patron saint or the patron guardian spirit of the centro or templo. And in a mesa in Puerto Rico, you will see the medium sitting there, and often you will see a big bowl, I don't have one in front of me, of water. This is where we work la causa. Okay, we're going to go to that in a second if you want to.
I'm here.
We work la causa, and then you have some mediums working, they call it la clave espiritual. La clave espiritual is automatic writing. See, every medium has a different gift, and you know, some mediums are vidente. They have the gift of videncia. They can see the spirit. Some mediums can physically channel the spirit. They are a conduit where the spirit manifests in their body. And then some mediums have the gift to channel the spirit through the hand. And so they get messages by writing on a libreta, a notebook. Other mediums can even draw. I have a godson that if we're doing a session and we're working a causa is an attachment, a lower level spirit. My godson can draw what that spirit looks like. He goes into a zone and he will draw. His hand just starts drawing.
That's awesome.
So I know it's deep, the question that you asked.
So, I mean, to get back to Candelo's question, and it kind of filters into the whole not offering of blood, should someone on their menstruation approach their ancestor altar and or go into a mesa?
So women can go, but they cannot work los muertos. They shouldn't work los muertos. Blood is not a bad thing, but what blood does is it attracts lower vibrational spirits. A person can go to a centro, they can cleanse, but they cannot, or they should not mount spirits. If they are a medium, they should not mount a spirit, because the blood, that blood attracts, it attracts sharks. It attracts lower vibrational spirits, mocking spirits, dark entities that could hurt her, and as well as the templo and centro.
So I guess to sort of bring this back to the theme of, not being taken advantage of, making sure that you are, safe during this time, this actually goes in the opposite direction. It's less about being taken advantage of and more about advocating for yourself as a female. So if you are a woman who is on her moon cycle, it is okay to then participate. You just can't.
You can pray. You can light a candle to your ancestors in your house. You don't want to mount a spirit during that time.
And so, and honestly, most templos, most places will just say, just don't come. They'd rather not take the chance, and they'd say, don't come. Versus
some, yeah, it depends. It depends on each centro, but people don't tell people if they're on the menstruation or not. You know what I'm saying? Right. And you will see people, literally, I've seen mediums that have come in their menstruation in Puerto Rico, in los templos in rural Puerto Rico, and I've seen them take on a causa. and they convulse and they throw themselves on the floor, and literally they'll start bleeding. You'll see the blood. I've seen it with my own eyes, but they take on these lower vibrational energies that can often hurt la materia. When I say la materia, I'm talking about this
Right.
vessel. And in Spiritismo, we do not allow a spirit to hurt la materia.
Right. So, I got a question here. I thought it was actually really good. So it's from Empath Vibes. So she's asking, so basically you can say your prayers on the altar while you're on your moon cycle, but mediumship and working spirits, no. So really what we're trying to say, because I think mediumship is another kind of a loose term that people tend to sort of use as a catch-all term. So he's not saying that you cannot work with your spirits, and he can't. He's not saying that you cannot be a medium, but mounting is where it becomes a little bit dangerous because you are attracting hungry, thirsty.
Well, the same thing could be said if I have a big cut. Right. An open wound. I'm a male. If I have a big cut, an open wound, I can honor my spirits. If someone passes away in my family, I can go to the cemetery and do my prayers and be alongside my family to watch, to pray for that person who's getting buried. I should not. What you do, what you don't do is up to each individual. But as a responsible medium, I should not mount a spirit because I can hurt myself and I can hurt people around me.
Exactly. So to kind of go back, and I know we're kind of jumping all over the place right now, but I think it's really, really important because I want to get everyone's questions in, and I want to talk about all the fun things that we talk about, but we always have to bring it back to what the topic was. So just bear with me if you see me kind of jumping all over the place. Plus, it's our first time on this platform. This platform is called StreamYard. It's amazing. But there's a lot of stimuli happening all at once. So just be patient with me. It might seem a little bit scattered. So really briefly, before I get into the next question, there is a little clarification that I feel is necessary right now. And the clarification is with regards to those altars again that we were talking about, the ancestral altar, Boveda, the Mesa Blanca space. Someone who works at home, someone who does not have a templo, someone who is just solitary, works at home, is an ancestor altar something that has all of your ancestors on it? Is that different from an altar that has all of your spiritual guides and your spiritual cuadro on it? Or can they be combined? Because I get this question a lot from new people who.
So for me, I'm talking about for me, I have a mesa where I have my spirit guides. Okay, this is where I have my gitana, my madama, my negrito, whatever it may be. My indio, my cacique en cabeza. That's where I honor my cuadro espiritual. Now, if you go to Puerto Rico and you go to Cuba, you will often see in these places, not so much anymore, but in the olden days, you will see when people passed away, they would put a picture on a wall, and it would be called a nicho, and they would have like a little shelf with a candle and water, and that would be only for people of bloodline who has passed away. So the wall would have what do you call that when you have a bunch of pictures together? A collage. So yeah, it's like a collage of all the people that have passed away. And so oftentimes mediums, espiritistas, we keep our difuntos separated from our cuadro espiritual. But some people put them together. It depends on the tradition of espiritismo that you practice. You can understand that espiritismo is a loose term because there are many branches of espiritismo. You can't, just like there is many branches of Christianity, or Buddhism or whatever, or witchcraft. There are many branches of spiritism. I've been to Colombia, and they have their own tradition. I've been to Venezuela. They have la tradición María Leonza. And you'll see a lot of similarities with Puerto Rican espiritismo, but then you'll see a lot of differences. Been to Brazil. They've got Umbanda, and then they got, which is a Afro, which is similar to Espiritismo Cruzado, Cuban Espiritismo Cruzado, and Puerto Rican Sanse. So you'll see that, but then you'll also see Espiritismo Mesa Blanca, which is more pure I think I'm like going far where we're going with. Sorry about that. My
But
brain goes faster than what I.
No, it's great. I think it's good to just kind of let people know,
Yeah.
there really is no wrong way of doing this. If you're setting up this altar for your ancestors and for your
Gotcha.
spirit guides, I mean, ultimately it's coming from love, it's coming from a good place, and there really is no wrong way of doing it. It's
No.
like it's something that you have to hold, unless of course you're a part of a specific tradition or a specific
Right.
ATR that has a very specific set of rules on how
Right.
to set it up and what to do with that.
So to blow people's minds, sometimes the spirits in your cuadro espiritual are ancestral spirits from a past life. Or they could be a spirit that you connected with in a past life. And so you're born in this life, and maybe that spirit was not, but that spirit, that connection is still there. So it becomes like a guide to you in this life. So it could be an ancestor. You got to understand in the time of slavery, think about this. In the time of slavery, when you have the aristocratic Spanish family and even in the United States and America, when there was slavery, and you have the slaves, you'd have the mother and the father doing whatever they did, but who was raising the children? The white children. The slaves, las negritas, las madamas, and there's a bond built there. There's a bond built there that is not separated by the death of the physical body. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. So speaking of traditions and things like that, now that I kind of brought it up there, one of the questions that you had was, or someone had for you, sorry, was the difference between honoring and working with your spirits and your ancestors. And I felt like this question was really important because there's a huge debate in the community, especially among the ATR communities and among even among Espiritismo, this idea of the accessibility of spirits. Some
Right.
are off limits unless you are initiated or unless you have a certain path to that spirit. And
Right.
then you have the other side of that kind of has like that free for all, all spirits come from the source and all spirits are free and you can engage them however you want to and they can engage you. So I wanted to ask you from an Espiritismo, from your perspective, what is this accessibility to spirits or lack thereof? Are they all free and up for grabs, or are there some that are off limits?
So break this question down simpler, because I'm trying to get this in my brain, what you're asking here.
So basically what I'm asking is, are all spirits and ancestors, are you able to work with all of them, or are some of them off limits due to certain initiations or certain paths that you have to take to get to them?
Okay, so this question is very complex, but I'm going to give you my personal experiences. I honor all my ancestors. I don't necessarily work. We're going to get into the word work, my ancestors or mi difuntos, the people that have passed away. I just honor them, all right? I work, laboro, mis seres, my spirits. So when I say laboro, I do sesiones. A sesión is a seance. And when I'm doing the seance, my cacique, my cacique en cabeza, we have a head spirit guide. So my head spirit guide comes on my body, uses my body as a vehicle to work, to cleanse, to purify, to do what it needs to do, okay? Each session is very different. That is when I'm laborando los seres. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't know if I'm answering that question. A lot of people say I'm working the spirits. No, in our culture, when we're working the spirit is because the spirit is actually the spirit's working you, because we're mounting the spirit, you know what I'm saying? We're the caballo. The caballo is the horse. We are the banco. The banco is the seat. We're la casilla, as we say in Puerto Rico. We're the little house where the spirit sits on top of us, and they use us to laborar. Laborar is to work spiritually. I don't know if I'm answering that question.
No, I think you are. You're answering it from a very different perspective, and it's a perfect one. It's great. So you have that perspective of actually working the altar and working the spirits of that altar.
Right.
moving the glasses around in certain orders, having certain dialogue, mounting certain things that where you work with them. I guess I interpreted that question a little bit differently. I interpret it with the idea of just having access to them. So, for example,
so let me give you an example. I have a love. I know my sanse. My sanse are spirits that are given to me in a tradition that is Puerto Rican voodoo mixed with espiritismo. I know my sanse, and I know my guardian angel in sanse. And I love my guardian angel. I've never physically mounted my guardian angel, but there is a saint that is not part of my cuadro espiritual that I've always loved. Okay, that I just love this santo, Chango, not part of my cuadro espiritual. And the reason I just have this deep love for Chango. I have this deep love for thunder and lightning and rain. And even though Chango is not part, and I don't work with Chango, I would never, I do give Chango, when it's raining, his candle. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because there's a relationship that I have with Chango. I don't go in a book and pick and choose spirits. Every spirit in my altar, in my casa, in my house is because I love them and they're part of my life in some way. I don't pick it from a book, oh, everyone is honoring Santísima Muerte today, let's jump in that bandwagon. It doesn't work with me. Everyone's doing that and that's fine. I respect people that do that. I don't work with La Santísima Muerte. It's not part of my cuadro. I just have no affiliation with it. Pagan gods. I know Hecate, beautiful goddess. I think she's interesting. She's nice. I have my handful with my cuadro and with the spirits that I have. You know what I'm saying? When my son said to honor them, it's a handful. You know, and I don't know if I'm answering that question.
No, that's exactly where I was going with it. Because I feel, you see this a lot in the community. And again, it's going all the way back to being taken advantage of and getting misinformation. So you see a lot of the community of people giving readings to with tarot cards to find out who your Orisha head is, your crown, or getting information, just stuff that normally you would not have access to. That whole idea of access, unless you were initiated in that tradition or unless you were working on a path that's and so I guess what I'm trying to say, and you kind of clarified that, is yes or no. All spirits are not free for all. They aren't full access and open to everyone. You can honor them, you can love them, you can be a devotee.
Of course.
And give, candles and flowers and all this, but to work with them.
Exactly.
To get them to do things for you and to have that interconnectedness.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
Let me give you an example. We all can love the ocean. We should all love the ocean. We should all keep that ocean clean. And if I'm doing a ceremony for La Sirena is what we call in Santeria is Yemayá. People that are not devotees of La Sirena or La Siren or Yemayá can come. Everyone can honor the ocean. We should honor nature. We should honor it. But that doesn't mean that just because you're honoring the ocean, you're going to go home and, okay, I honored the ocean today. Let me go home. Now I'm going to go get a statue to Yemayá and start putting blue candles. And that doesn't work like that. When you see the people in Santeria, it's because they are priests of this Orisha. Do you see what I'm saying? They are priests. And so they know the mysteries that a lot of people would not generally know. This is far from espiritismo. But if you want to go honor the river spirits, Oshun, Mama Ganga, Venus, whatever it may be, and you want to clean around the river because you just have this love for it and you're doing it out of respect, because you want nothing of that spirit but to show respect, and that is fine.
Yes. Yeah. And so again, this is one way that you can sort of see red flags in the community and you sort of protect yourself from certain people that are out there claiming that, you can, if you pay them X amount of money over online, they can send you this initiation or they can send you this package to help you connect to that spirit or whatever the case may be, just remember that those kinds of things that's a red flag. Don't fall for that, please. It's a safety
That's
thing.
crazy. That's crazy.
And it's happening. It's happening. People are sending initiations right over the mail, man. It's crazy. So speaking, I'm getting a lot of questions here, a lot of amazing questions, and they actually all have a lot to do with the caretaking of the altar itself. So you have questions about, how frequently you should change your water, why you need to wear white, should you use Joss money, that Chinese money, all that. So I'm getting a lot of questions with the actual altar itself. Do you want to kind of comment on that a little bit?
So again, you have to specify where I'm going because you just said like 20 questions. I'm sorry.
I think a good place to start actually is that Joss money question, because we were just talking about accessibility to spirits. And
I'm sorry, and I'm going to offend a lot of people on here. That is the vulgar invention of a demented New Ager. It doesn't exist in our culture. We have pennies. I have a negrita right there, a madama. And every time I have change in my pocket, it goes onto my negrita. And every time I'm going to go out in nature to offer to spirits, whether it be the loa or misterios, I take from that, or I buy candles, blah, blah, blah. Joss money, hell money, comes from Asian cultures, and they write petitions and they burn it for the spirit. And that is not part of our culture. So you are, what's the word, culturally assimilating? Culturally appropriating. If people want to do that, then that's fine. Allá tú. Cada cabeza es su mundo. Every head they believe what they want to believe, and that's fine. But that's not part of our tradition. We in America, there's plenty of change in your pockets, plenty of pennies in your pocket that you don't have to go buy Monopoly money or Joss money or whatever it is that they're using today. That's not part of our culture.
Yeah, you can leave actual money on the altar.
You can leave coins, you know what I'm saying? Or pennies, or yeah.
Okay, so
my abuelita be like, why is he giving me food stamps? It looks like food stamps from the 1960s. Nene, don't be giving me food stamps. Dame 2 pesos, give me some money. She'd be like, ¿qué te pasa a ti, puñeta?
Right. And what about, I can't. I'm trying to be serious right now. And what about wearing white? Why do we wear white? Why do we look so cute in white? What's up with this?
So the only ones that really wear white, you can wear any color you want to honor your spirits. Okay. The only time we wear, if you are on your altar and you have a black shirt, you can have a black shirt. You can wear blue jeans. You can wear whatever you want. Clothing means nothing. It should be, the purity should come from within. The only time you'll see us, the mediums, use white is when we are doing a sesión, a velada, or a misa espiritual, and it's usually the mediums who wear white because they are channeling white. White is a universal color, and it symbolizes all the colors, and it attracts spirits to us. Okay? Now, if you want to wear white, honoring your spirits, you can do so, but generally, it is only used when we're doing like I just said, sesiones, which is a seance, velada, but that's in our culture, because if you go to Europe, if you go to Kardecian spiritism, espiritismo caldesiano, they don't wear white.
They don't.
You know what I'm saying?
True.
No, they don't. They wear regular clothing. Yeah. The white comes from Afro traditions and also Taino traditions or Native American traditions where they wore light clothing to honor the spirits.
Gotcha.
And it was usually a shaman or a priest who would wear that, and the rest of the tribe would wear their regular gear. So you will see the people who are working, or the spirits are working on us, to differentiate us from the público, the public. But the public can wear white if they choose to.
Gotcha. So can you remind everyone of the path of Espiritismo you are again?
So my grandmother is what we call in Puerto Rico espiritismo folclórico or criollo.
Okay.
Criollo is folkloric, or criollo. Criollo is creolized spiritism, where it is a mixture of indigenous Taino spirituality. Okay, you got to understand the Puerto Ricans. They did a test on Puerto Ricans. We are 62% Native American blood. So a lot of what you see in our espiritismo has a lot of Native American elements, and it depends on the part of Puerto Rico where you live. You can live in central Puerto Rico and it'd be more creolized, while you can go to places like the coastal where there are more African people of African descent, Luisa, and so they will add more African elements to their forms of espiritismo. So I practice.
So the reason why I ask is because with all the things that we're talking about here today, yes, they are from your perspective, from your tradition. So just keep that in mind. The audience needs to keep that in mind. So when you are seeking services and you're seeking to connect to your dead, and you want to do so from the perspective of Espiritismo Criollo, this is the kind of information that can help you sort of navigate that world. So things like someone telling you go put some Joss money on your altar and go do this and go do that is, again, it's red flags, because these are things that we do not incorporate.
No, you'd see an espiritista say, ¿Qué carro hace este pendejo? You know what I'm saying? Like, now, in Japanese culture or Asian culture, they do that, and that's fine. That's their cultures. But it's not practiced in our culture,
So I have a question here from Dylan Hubbard. It's a long-winded one, but I think it's a good one because there were a couple of questions before his that kind of touched on it, and I feel like it is really, really important to talk about it. It is. So how can one get into discovering who their guides and santos and misterios are to further, go in their path and how to develop those guides? So basically, how do we start? Do we start with a reading or a consultation?
It depends on the tradition. Sanse, we work the loa, or misterios, which are a mixture of Haitian and Dominican and Puerto Rican spirits. And then you got Espiritismo Criollo, which is more indigenous spirits. And I hope I'm answering this gentleman's question, but we have indigenous questions. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
So how do you discover your guides and santos? Do you get readings and consultations?
We get readings. So in templos, you will have mediums. It depends on the religion. There's Santeria. Santeria, if you want to find your Orisha, you would have a priest read for you, a bunch of priests, and they would bring down your Orisha. That is a totally different tradition than Espiritismo. Now, in Espiritismo, you will have media unidades, or mediums, who can sit down in a velada, and they're so gifted with clarividencia, clairvoyance, that they can see spirits that are around you, and they can see spirits of light, and the higher vibrational spirits that they see, they're often associated with, it could be a saint. You got to understand that saint, Orisha, Loa, it's an archetype. I don't know if that makes sense. So you can have mediums that can see in a person that goes to a templo, and they say, tú tienes Santa Bárbara, and your Santa Bárbara dresses in red and white, and so you can have mediums do that. They could tell you your guardian santo or a guardian angel that walks with you, but mostly what they see is spirit guides that walk with you as well. There's different various levels of spirit guides.
And I think this is another great thing, because it's always so tough to guide someone through this world of Espiritismo, because it involves so much trust, and it involves you're being read by strangers a lot of times, and this is you're putting yourself out there to someone, and the evidences may or may not be something that you were ready for, and it's very hard for people to discern that information. And so, I always advocate for people to learn things on their own and try and develop their own psychic and medium and intuitive skills. What are some techniques or some pieces of advice that you can give someone to help them develop their own intuition, so that they don't have to rely so heavily on the community and possibly, get hurt from it? You know what I mean? Like, how can they do it themselves?
If everyone knows my story, I hope I'm answering your question. Because I hear something and my brain interprets something different. That's the way a medium. That's the way a medium thinks. Since I was little, I'm always been legally blind. Okay, and I see spirits through what we call the third eye. I see the peri spirit and all that. But right now I'm talking to you and I can hear the wind blow. And I can hear my dog upstairs walking. Why? Because every week I'm exercising. You want to get muscles, you go to the gym and you exercise those muscles. You want to develop seeing and tasting my tea. I'm tasting my tea, and as I'm tasting it, I can feel the sourness of this raspberry tea going down because I've exercised that. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's about exercising the sight, the senses. Do you see what I'm saying? When I eat food, I like to break down food. When I get a cologne, I love perfumes because I'm blind, and I will sit here and I'll just close my eyes and I say, okay, I smell the citrus, and I smell some oud, and I can smell the alcohol. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes spirits can send wafts of smell. So the more you exercise that,
right,
the more you're more able to pick up on, smells. Or sight.
Working senses are so important because your senses are not just on the physical, they're also on the spiritual.
Right.
Physical senses, you're actually working those spiritual ones as well. That can help you on your journey. That'll help you to be more discerning from one spirit to the next and who's trying to communicate with you and what, because they will start to build a spiritual language with you based on how you interpret their information. And dreaming and things like that. So it's there's a lot that goes into it, but it's not difficult. It's just about practice. So I hope that's your question, Dylan. I have a great question here by Youssef. And this question is, what about the elemental spirits? How do you pick them and work with them or block them?
I honor the elemental spirits. I don't pick any elemental spirit. I honor the elemental spirits. Elemental spirits are not trustworthy. They don't trust humans. Look what we've done to the earth. We've destroyed the earth. So elemental spirits are often untrustworthy of humans. A human has to be of a higher vibrational, spiritual frequency for these elemental spirits to even trust that person. They're very not trustworthy. They don't trust humans. And I don't know if I'm explaining that question.
Yeah.
You think, okay, water nymphs look like Ariel and they're pretty. No, they don't. Hadas. Hadas are what we call in Spanish. Hadas are the fairy. They're not like Tinkerbell. You know what I'm saying? And they're often very mischievous and often spirits that can be sometimes they can be very dangerous to the person. So I don't know if I'm answering that question.
No, I think you are. So it's not about picking them. Let's see, what else do we have here?
They're not these spirits are not animals that are in a pet mart or whatever that you say, oh, that's a cute one, let me take him home. It doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. Exactly. You can honor these spirits, or you can respect that area where you feel these energies are in, but you don't want to toy with that. Duendes, I don't mean to cut you. Duendes in the Hispanic cultures are so mischievous, that in our Latin culture, duendes are gnomes. We are taught from childhood, El Cuco, we are taught from childhood, don't mess because El Cuco is going to get you. El Cuco is a duende, you know what I'm saying? Right. In the Spanish cultures, in Spain, duendes are very powerful. One culture that honors the duendes, which are the gnomes, are the gypsy people. And they mount the duendes. When you see them dancing flamenco, what's happening, they get this, they get the duende. That's what they call it in Spanish. In flamenco culture, when they get the duende, is because that duende, that gnome spirit, possesses them, the gypsy or the flamenco dancer, and they're possessed and start dancing The duende is inside that person. So they have duende.
To kind of go back to what you were saying, though, with regards to not really just going out there and picking things and just, or going to a book and just randomly picking a spirit. I think that goes the same also when you're getting a reading from a medium or a channeler or someone. I think it's really important, too, to kind of get several readings, to get multiple readings to understand.
You should. That's why you should. And that's why in Santeria, sometimes, often Santeria is a vague term. Yoruba traditions, often you will see a group of priests bringing down your guardian angel. You know what I'm saying? It takes a group. So oftentimes it's not just one medium. I've read for people and I said, oh my God, tú tienes una gitana, it's just like this. And they're like, wow, I've been told this and but sometimes it could take various mediums to see.
Exactly. But that confirmation is necessary. It's kind of like
getting confirmation is necessary. Yes.
Yeah. It's like getting a consensus. If they're all saying the same thing, then obviously the spirit is trying to reach out to you and wants you to work with them. Now,
a good medium, I have read for many people, mediums are what we were before DNA tests were. Good medium. A good medium. Before DNA, before you spit in a tube and you found out you had all these blood, a good medium can say, tú tienes un espíritu céltico, tú tienes un espíritu, Celtic spirit. And what that medium is doing is giving you a DNA of who you were maybe in the past, in all your life. And so oftentimes, your cuadro, you will have a cuadro espiritual that matches oftentimes your DNA if you get your DNA test. I had a person, he comes from South America, and I said, you have a spirit from Dahomey. And so years later, he got his DNA test and it pinpointed that part of Africa, and so a good medium is like a DNA test, you know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Speaking of good mediums, so I have a great question here from Sancista 7 Crossroads. She is an amazing YouTuber. I don't know if you've ever seen her stuff. She's awesome. And the question is, do you have any advice to potential clients looking to hire a medium and to talk to a specific person, a specific dead? Or do you have any advice on what to look for in a medium when you're trying to find a specific person or communicate with a specific person?
So say that again. I just want to understand the question.
So let's say you're trying to communicate with your great-grandmother and you're not a medium to do so.
Okay.
What's some good advice? Like, what should you be looking for in that reading or in that medium?
That the medium can give you information that only you and that spirit, they have to validate something that only you and that spirit knows. Let's say your grandmother or spirit, I don't know, let's say your grandmother in life, when you were a little girl, she'd call you my chocolate pudding. And all of a sudden this medium says, I see a spirit here and she's calling you chocolate pudding for some reason. That's the term left my brain, but that's
a piece.
Una evidencia. That's an evidence that could be a spirit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Not always, because it could be a mocking spirit as well. But I remember one person. There's a big Asian community here, and she had gone to. You understand that spiritism exists in all culture. Spiritualism. So she had gone to a medium who practices Tibet, and so her husband had died, who was an American. And so the medium said to the woman who was mourning, your husband is asking for an altar to the Buddha, which confused her because her husband was a devout Catholic. You know what I'm saying? Was a complete devout Catholic and didn't necessarily, he respected that she was Buddhist, but he didn't participate in Buddhism. So that really confused her. And it felt like when she left that, it felt like, okay, this is not my husband. That's a mocking spirit.
Yeah, especially, and another good piece of it too is if you leave a mediumship or if you leave a reading with more questions than you came in with.
that's
That's not good.
Sometimes you can. Sometimes a medium can blow your mind that you're like, wow, how did they know that? And you get more questions, of course.
Right.
But are they good questions or are they bad questions?
Right. That's what I meant. Exactly. We have some here by one of your godsons, actually, Jay. So he says, what do you say? I'll actually show the question. What do you say to those who request guidance in regards to their spiritual path? What should they be wary of when going to someone? So basically what he's asking is to a spiritual seeker or to someone who's seeking out guidance on their path. What are some of the things should they be weary of when they're out there on the search for a teacher or a mentor or a guide?
We are born, and it's sad that we've forgotten this, we are born with the innate ability to understand what is right and wrong, what feels good and what feels bad. Okay? From little, we have that's if you can, I'm gonna explain this. Lailani, you're a little girl, I'm an older man, and I hug you and embrace you. You, not knowing, you can understand if that embrace is comfortable or uncomfortable.
Very
okay?
So true.
Right? So when you go to a medium, you have to listen to that. Because the spirits are never going to lie to you. I have told a lot of people that have gone to mediums before, and they've come and whatever reason, and I often say to them, I bet you, when you sat with this medium or whatever it is, espiritista or brujo or whatever, that something told you, be careful, and you didn't listen. You know what I'm saying? Right. So you have to really listen to yourself.
I agree. There's something innate. Like you said, there's something just in you. You just feel it. You just know
it's primitive. It's primitive. It is part of us from the beginning of time. Yeah. We know what is dangerous and what is good for us. But today's society, we ignore it. We ignore all these signs, these omens, these feelings, these emotions.
And especially right now, during times of crisis, when everyone is operating from a place of fear, from a place of nervousness and anxiety, and where are they going to get their next paycheck? Where are they going to get their next meal? Are they going to pay rent this month? All this stuff is happening, and this can cause your spiritual faculties to get clouded. This can cause your intuitive lines and your clarity to get jumbled up and mismanaged. And that's why I think it's so important that during times like this, when you have the opportunity to stay home and quarantine or get a lockdown, take those opportunities to meditate, take those opportunities to work on your spiritual faculties, strengthen yourself up, take your spiritual cleansing baths, make sure you're clear and clean and constantly speaking to your spirit guides, your guardian angels, your ori, whatever it is that brings you peace and guidance and clarity, connect to that.
So Jay knows because he's been through experiences with me. There was one experience that we had done a cleansing of a botanica. Where there was just lower vibrations. And after we left, Jay's there. He was there. After we left, I can see the spirit, like I can tell you stories and people will be shocked, but I can see the spirit like I'm seeing you right now. But I remember, and Jay can vouch, that when we left that botanica, there was a man walking. And the man was drunk. He was walking like a zombie. Like literally, he was like stooping all over the place. And I stopped and I looked. And the first thing I always say to myself, is it material or is it spiritual? You know? And so I looked at Jay and I said, Jay, and he said, no, Padrino, he's just a drunk dude. You know what I'm saying? I've always developed that. One day we had a blackout here in my neighborhood. And so I went outside just to have a cigarette. I'm smoking now, but I generally smoke outside. I don't like to smoke inside. But I went outside, and all of a sudden, what we call it in Spanish, el ojo de brujo, my spiritual radar started ticking. And I felt there was a presence around me. So I asked myself, okay, because I've always done this, is it material or is it spiritual? Material, is it a human body, person walking, or is it not a human, because I'm in the dark and I'm smoking a cigarette outside, and something said to me, no, it's not material, it's spiritual. So of course I'm in the dark and I'm looking around. Imagine I'm blind, so I'm looking around for anything, squinting my eyes, and all of a sudden, across the street, I look at this tree, and it was shadow. I saw this tree, and all of a sudden by this tree, I saw a shadow. Talking about it, my heart is skipping, because then all of a sudden my heart started going fast. And the hair started coming up, and I felt every fiber in my body felt uncomfortable. And I knew that it was either a lost spirit or a spirit, a mocking spirit. So I went inside, I got some holy water, some salt, and I threw it, and I said, Espíritu, vaya, busca la luz, go look for the light. You cannot cross here, you cannot come here. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, or if there was a question for that, but I've always developed those gifts,
Yeah. I have, this is actually a really great question, because I think it speaks to a lot of people who are solitary practitioners, people who don't have an opportunity to find community, don't have Espiritismo temples around to be able to join or be a part of that. So the question is from Tessa Hansman, and she asks, do people have to be baptized in Espiritismo?
No. No, you don't have to, but there are bautismos espirituales. In Puerto Rico, you got to understand, in rural culture, they didn't have cars, and often the church, if you lived in the rural areas, churches were in the main plaza of the big city, okay? Usually it was just one church, and everyone would have to go there. You'd walk miles to get to this church. So when a child was born, okay, when a child was born in rural Puerto Rico or rural Cuba or wherever, they would spiritually baptize the child. And usually it was a santero, and a santero is, a Puerto Rican santero in those days is different than a Cuban santero. But they would have a santero baptize a child, or they would have an espiritista. And this person would be padrino or madrina de agua, okay, is part of our culture. When they were able to physically get to the church and all that, then they would get baptized the Catholic or the Christian tradition. So there is bautismos in Espiritismo, but not all practice it. I like to baptize when I feel a connection with someone. I like to baptize that person spiritually, because then they understand that I am what we call their guía espiritual. Their guía espiritual is I'm their physical guide to the world of spirit whenever they need me, as best as I can. I always tell them, remember, your greatest teachers are your cuadro espiritual. Those are your greatest teachers. But in materia, sometimes we need a person to talk to. So I become like your padrino espiritual, or padrino de agua.
So there you go, to those solitary practitioners, and even to those who do have a community. It can be, or it doesn't have to be.
Right. I know templos in Puerto Rico that they do bodas espirituales. Where it could be a Sancista, it could be a Espiritista, where they don't necessarily connect with a church. Or, sometimes in order to get married in a church, you have to do all these, rites of passages. So a lot of people don't, so they go to an Espiritista, or they go to a Sancista or a Santero, and they get a boda espiritual, which is a spiritual wedding.
Gotcha. And what about, there's a question that I tend to get a lot, that you can't really call yourself an espiritista or practice espiritismo unless you go to misas. Like, there's no point.
Anyone who sees the world of spirits or interacts with the world of spirit is an espiritista.
So,
okay. Well, I'm sorry. Let me fix that. I just said that wrong. Is a media unidad. I'm saying that wrong. Is a medium. We got to separate the word medium from espiritista. Espiritista comes from the word espiritismo, and espiritismo is under the doctrines and the codifications of Allan Kardec. Okay, so you can be a medium. You don't have to be mediums come in all cultures. You have mediums in Japan, in Africa, in Europe, in Latin America, in the United States, in Brazil, mediums that practice espiritismo or other forms of tradition. You have even mediums in Catholicism. I know mediums that are Catholics, or Buddhists, or whatever it may be. But that doesn't generally make you an espiritista. Espiritista is that you learned and you studied the codification of Allan Kardec.
Right. But isn't part of that also to go to these misas and have that communal part of it as well? Because I that's the debate that I'm seeing a lot in the community, where it's like, if you don't go to misas, if you're not part of that growth where you are interacting and elevating your spirits and working with them and then it's not you're not really doing anything with it. You're just another medium.
I know a lot of people who've never been to a centro or templo espiritual in their whole life, and they can go into a house that is, let's call it, haunted by lower level vibrations, and they feel the spirit, and some of them even manifest the spirit, and they are mediums. They just don't know they're mediums. They have the gift, they have the ability, but they're not espiritistas. Do you see what I'm saying? So a lot of places, like, you can go into a place and walk in, and you don't even have to be part of the tradition, but you have that gift, that ability to pick up energies or feel energies, whether it's positive or negative.
Gotcha.
Okay. And I know the question was deeper. Sorry about that.
No. That's a great answer. So, I feel like we're wrapping up. I feel like we've answered most of everything we wanted to answer today, and I feel like we definitely tied it back to, how to be safe. How to identify red flags, what to look for. And I think ultimately the summary that I'm coming away with is, whether you're a solitary practitioner, whether you're a spiritual seeker, whether you're just a person who's looking for services to connect with their dead, ultimately it's about your feelings. It's about how you feel when you walk into these spaces, when you meet these mediums, when you connect with these spirits. And if these feelings are good and they're light and they're joyful and they lift you up, then go for it.
Mediums that are developed shouldn't be solitary, because in our culture we call ourselves misioneros. We're missionaries, and we have this gift for a purpose, for a reason, and it is to help our fellow man, whether it's elevating a spirit or healing a person who's under attack by a lower level spirit, or helping a spirit cross over. I know a lot of mediums that just supposedly work the white light, I guess that you want to call it. You don't see that in even though we call it Mesa Blanca. Most of the times when you go to a Mesa Blanca in Puerto Rico, or you're watching us trabajando la causa, laborando la causa, these are lower level attachments, and they're not spirits of light. They're far from it, But we are misioneros because we use that gift that we have to help our brother man and brother sisters.
Exactly. So, Sancista, I am going to post a picture of your book that everyone should get. Here it is, Luz y Progreso, Light and Progress. And everyone needs to get this book because it's amazing. It has all of the questions that we talked about here tonight, plus some, and everything in between. It's all in there. And I heard that you're working on a second book. Is this true?
Yes, my muse spirit guides have left the building. Like, she comes every so often, and then she's here first. I remember I used to write a blog like a couple of years back, and I don't understand how I did that on a weekly basis. But my music, I know she's there somewhere, but she's like being stubborn, because every time I start writing, I get distracted, or I have a reading, or I start doing something else, It's there. There's the skeletal of the book. I just got to get it. I got to get myself motivated to getting it done.
I believe in you. You're going to do it. Honestly, it's going to come out when it's supposed to come out.
Exactly.
Do what you got to do. And we are here just waiting with bated breath. So don't worry, we are here waiting for it. So Sancista, is there anything else that you would like to talk about? Is there anything that's
Is there any questions or any questions anybody has?
No, they're pretty much wrapped it up. They're excited for the second book as well. Everyone says that your first book is amazing, and the whole trail of Santerismo. Everyone was complimenting the conversation that we had, the questions that were being answered. So I feel wonderful about it. And if you guys need to reach out to Sancisto, he's on Facebook. He's also on YouTube. So make sure you check out his channel. Make sure you check out Facebook. And I myself, I'm Leilani. I'm the Magickal Solution. You can find me on Facebook and on YouTube. And thank you so much.
Thank you. And also check out my blog post, my blog, Boricua Brujos. Our next episode is tomorrow night.
Yes.
And yeah, we're talking on brujeria, brujas. Yes. So we'll be talking about that. And I'm also posting a video tomorrow on my YouTube channel, a brand new video, and I'm going to keep it under wraps until it comes out tomorrow morning. But come check us out. Come check us out at Boricua Brujos. You can find us anywhere, Spotify, iHeart, whatever. And come check me out on YouTube. I have a brand new video coming out tomorrow. I think you guys are all going to like it.
I'll make sure to post the link for Boricua Brujos in the comments below. So make sure you guys check that out, okay? Sancista, thank you again.
Thank you.
Much, brother. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.